Hello, welcome to the Argo course. My name is Mohammad and I'm very happy to be here again. In this session, I want to talk about Argo CD private repositories. As we saw earlier and as we learned, we deployed our Argo CD applications using public repositories. This is the repository of our course, Argo CD-tutorial. And as you can see, the visibility of this repo is public, so there is no need to authenticate. But if the visibility of our repo is private, what can we do? We have an option here called code. If I click on it, we have two different ways to authenticate. The first way is using HTTPS. If I want to use this way, we can authenticate to this repository with a username and password or token. We can create a generic token and use the token to authenticate. And another way is SSH. If we want to use this way, we have to add our public SSH key into our GitHub account and use our private key to authenticate to our GitHub repository. These are the methods that we can do to authenticate. We can do the same using Argo CD. Argo CD uses Kubernetes secret objects to store our credentials. For example, we can store our username and password. We can store our token or our private key into a Kubernetes secret object and use that object to authenticate to these repositories. First of all, I want to create a Kubernetes secret object to store our credentials to authenticate to our GitHub repository using HTTPS way. I already created a generic token for my GitHub account, and I want to use my personal GitHub repository to test. Because of that, this is my personal repo and its visibility is private. So we have to authenticate to this repo using HTTPS or SSH. First of all, I want to use HTTPS way. And if I click on settings of my account, in developer settings, personal access tokens. As you can see, I already defined a generic token called Argo CD Private Repo, and I want to use this token for this section. Very good. And also, I already defined a Kubernetes secret called HTTPS secret. Let's open it. As you can see, this is a standard Kubernetes secret object with kind of secret. The name of this secret is Argo CD Private Repo and the namespace is Argo CD. As you can see, we have defined a label called Argo CD Argo project.io/secret type equals repository. Defining this label is so important. So don't forget to define this label as you can see here. Very good. Another block is a string data. It has multiple fields like type is Git, username is the name of the token that we created. As you can see here, the name of the token is Argo CD Private Repo. And this is the password. The password is the generated token itself. This is the token. I copied this and pasted here. This is the generated token. Very good. Let's save the file and apply it into Argo CD namespace, kubectl apply-f HTTPS secret. And the secret has been created. kubectl get a secret, and as you can see, we have a new secret called Argo CD Private Repo. And yeah, that's it. If I go to my Argo CD dashboard UI, this is my Argo CD dashboard UI, we have an option here, the second option called settings. If I click on it, we have multiple options. The first one is repositories. The URL, as you can see here, the connection status is failed. The connection status is failed because I didn't define the URL. Let's open the file again. I defined type, username, and password, but I didn't define the URL of my GitHub repository. I have to define my repository. For example, this is the repository that I want to use. Its visibility is private, so I copy the HTTPS URL of this repo, and here I define URL as a key and the URL value. Very good. This is the URL of my GitHub repository. Let's apply this file for the second time. kubectl apply-f HTTPS secret. And it has been configured. And if I go to this section, refresh list, and yes, as you can see, connection status has been changed from failed to successful. Very good. The second way to authenticate to our private repository is using SSH. Okay. If I click on code again, there is another option called SSH, and the URL is different with HTTPS. I want to use the URL based on SSH here. Okay. I already defined a new file called SSH secret. Let's open it. As you can see, we have two differences between this file and the previous file for HTTPS. The first difference is the URL. The URL has been changed from HTTPS to SSH. As you can see, this URL is based on SSH, git@github.com. Okay? And the second difference is SSH Private Key. We are using SSH Private Key instead of username and password that we had in HTTPS. And its content is my private key, as you can see here. Very good. Let's save the file and apply it into our Argo CD namespace. kubectl SSH secret, yes. And as you can see here, my new secret has been created. Argo CD Private Repo SSH. Very good. Let's go to Argo CD dashboard UI again, and if I click on repositories, as you can see, my new repository has been added here, and its connection status is successful. It's based on SSH, and this is based on HTTPS. We can create private repositories using CLI and UI, but I always prefer to define all these objects using manifests. But for example, if you want to create a private repo using UI, you can click on Connect Repo, choose your connection method via SSH, HTTPS, GitHub app, or Google Cloud, for example, HTTPS. Add your repository URL here, username and password, and if your repo needs to receive TLS, you can add your TLS certificate and add your TLS certificate key here too. And if you want to create an application, create a private repository using CLI, you can do this command argo CD repo add -h. As you can see here, these are the examples that you can use them. For example, argo CD repo add this repository URL, the username, the password. If you have TLS, you can add your TLS pass. And if you are using SSH private repo, you can use this example and private key paths. Very good. These are the alternative ways that you can use. Let's create the application to use the private repository that we defined earlier in this session. Because of that, I already defined an application. I already defined the manifest of the application. Let's open its file, app.yaml. The name of this application is app-private, and the repository that I want to use is this. We defined this repository here. This is our private repository and we added here. So there is no problem to use it here because we added here earlier. It's HTTPS URL and it's SSH repo URL. So we can use it without any problem. Okay, let's save the file and let's apply this application into Argo CD namespace. This application has been created. Let's go to applications, and as you can see here, this is the application and its status is out of sync. Let's click on sync and click on synchronize. And the application status has been changed to synced. And it's using our private repository without any problem. Let's do the same using SSH. In this time, I want to use the SSH URL to deploy the new application. Because of that, I copy the SSH URL and copy from the first application app-ssh -ssh. Let's change the name of it to app-ssh-private, and let's change the repo URL from HTTPS to SSH. Very good. And let's apply the file using kubectl apply-f app-ssh.yaml, and the application has been created. Let's go to applications, and as you can see, app-ssh-private is in out of sync status. And if I click on sync and click on synchronize, the status of our application has been changed to synced. So we deployed our application using HTTPS private repository and SSH private repository. Very good. Here we have a big problem. If we want to add multiple private repositories, here, what should we do? Do we have to define multiple repositories here? Does this bother you? Is there a way to do this only once? Yes. We can define a template. We can define a credential template and use it for multiple private repositories. So it's not needed to define multiple repositories, as you can see here. Okay. First of all, I want to delete all of these repositories. Yes. And let's go to my terminal. I want to copy from HTTPS to a file called template.yaml. Let's open the new file. First of all, I want to change the name of this secret to Argo CD template. Very good. The definition of this secret is the same, except two things. The first difference is here in labels section. We have to replace repository with repo-creds. The secret type would be repo-creds. And the second difference is the URL. We don't want to use the repository URL. We don't want to use the exact repository URL. This is just a template. This is just a prefix. This is not just an exact repository URL. Because of that, I remove this part, argo CD tutorial.git. And yes, this is the URL, this is the prefix, this is the template that I want to use. And we can use any repository that matches this prefix. Okay? For example, blah.git. So we are allowed to use any repositories that matches this prefix. Very good. Let's save the file and apply it. And this credential template has been created. Let's go to Argo CD dashboard UI and settings, repositories. And as you can see here, we have a new entity, credential template URL. This is a template. This is a prefix. Very good. And in this time, we can create an application with a source, and its source can be a private repository that matches this prefix. Okay? For example, we have a file called app.yaml, and it's using this repo URL, https github.com Mohammad ll/argo-tutorial.git. This is the prefix that I'm using. This is the prefix that I'm using. So all repositories that matches this prefix can be used. Very good. Let's apply this application. Let's change the name app-private-template. Let's apply it. App.yaml. Very good. And in application section, we have a file, we have an application called app-private-template. And if we click on sync and synchronize, my application has been synced because we are using credential template instead of using the exact repository URL. Very good. In this time, I want to create an Argo CD private repository using Terraform. In the previous sessions, we created application, project, and project tokens using Terraform, but in this time, let's do this with Argo CD repository. Very good. We defined the needed Terraform files here. We have a new directory called Argo CD Private Repositories. And in this directory, we have a subdirectory called Private Repos using Terraform. And here we have 4 different Terraform files. Let's start with main.tf. In main.tf, we have a resource called Argo CD repository. This is the resource type, and private is the resource name. Here we have 3 required fields: repo, username, and password. We want to add an Argo CD private repository using HTTPS way. Because of that, defining username and password is required. But if you want to add your repository using SSH, you have to define SSH private key instead of username and password. Okay? This is providers.tf, and this is the provider that we want to use, and this is the information about how to connect to our Argo CD server. And Terraform.tf vars the key value pairs. For example, username and password of our Argo CD server, the repo password, the token that we want to use, and the username, the name of the token, and the repository URL, the private repository that we want to use. And this is the variables.tf, the variables that we defined. Very good. Let's apply this Terraform file and create an Argo CD private repository using Terraform. Very good. I already downloaded the necessary plugins to use this Terraform resource, to use this Terraform provider. Because of that, I don't want to use Terraform init. But if you are using it for the first time, it's necessary to type Terraform init to download the necessary plugins to use this provider. The second command that we want to use is Terraform validate to validate the syntax of our Terraform files, and the configuration is valid. Very good. Let's get a plan, Terraform plan. As you can see, one resource is ready to add. Argo CD repository private is going to add to our Argo CD server. Very good. And the final command is Terraform apply, enter a value, yes. And as you can see, one resource added. If I go to settings, repositories, and here we have a new repository. We have a new private repository that's created by Terraform, and its connection status is successful. Very good. We created this repository using Terraform, and very good. That's enough for this session, and I will see you soon.